I'm Dr. Zaria Davis, Senior Associate with Pretrial Justice Institute, and we are here today to talk about safety.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Nelson Pierce. I'm the pastor of Beloved Community Church and the Faith and Race Program Director at Xavier University. We are here tonight because elections matter. Because more than the transfer of power between political parties, this election and every election is an opportunity to bring us closer to beloved community or to move us further away from it, to bring us closer to safe and sustainable communities, or to bring us further away from it. And it is not simply the job of the people we elect to do this work, it is our job. As the people who make up this democracy, it is our job to take advantage of our right to vote, to cast a vote for the people who will bring us closer to the type of communities that we deserve to live in.
This is a picture of me, my son, and my grandson. My son's father was incarcerated after drug addiction that he sustained, being addicted to painkillers, playing semi-pro ball. That's because our system, not valuing Black lives, has turned drug addiction into criminal activity. And now my son, who also was addicted as an early youth, ended up being sentenced to 30 years for a non-violent drug offense. Because we also fail to realize that we in our country are perpetuating generational incarceration. So now I had the opportunity to register my 18-year-old grandson because we realize that what we need are elected officials who do not believe that punitive punishment are the way to end crime. But we need to focus on recovery and healing and not handcuffing children to the perpetual racism that is rampant in our criminal justice system.
But as for the drug court, I think you just have to expand access to more Black and brown people to make sure that they have the same opportunities to divert those negative effects of felony convictions. And I just think that's the best way that a judge can address it, because we don't have any discretion or authority over the Ohio Department of Corrections. And like she said, that is the one caveat in the 13th Amendment. So as for the drug court, I think it's increasing access so that the focus again is treatment and not punitive.
So I am in favor of bail reform, absolutely, 100% committed to that. I think that the purpose of a bond, which it is the purpose, is to ensure that somebody comes back to court and that the community is protected, and the ability to pay money or a monetary bond. There's ample evidence and research out there to show that that has no bearing on either of those things. What bond typically does is cause people who have very little to begin with to lose what little they have while they're sitting in jail pre-trial because they can't afford to pay to get out. And what I mean by lose things is things such as their jobs, maybe their place to live, and sometimes even their children while they're sitting in jail. So we definitely need bail reform. I think one way we can get there too is to increase our pretrial services, because in my experience as a public defender, a lot of the reason why people can't come to court is not because they're trying to evade justice or skip out. It's because they don't have the resources to get back to court.
How would you directly address the racial disparity and make sure that the courts are not treating Black kids more harshly than they are treating white kids in Cincinnati?
Thank you for that very, very important question, and honestly, the impetus of my running for juvenile court judge. The disparity in how we treat white kids versus Black and brown kids in the juvenile court in Hamilton County is more than apparent. All you have to do is walk through to see that, to back up the statistics that you heard just a moment ago. My plan when I'm the judge is to first start by treating each child as a child. My understanding of restorative justice and the way that I think about it as a process is sort of like a Venn diagram. All different sorts of groups coming together with a common goal in the middle. The common goal in the middle being community safety, community restoration, community improvement. Now, those circles coming together, or those groups of people, are members of the community at large, the victims of offenses, or the victims of crime, sometimes we would call them, and the children who are charged with those offenses leading to someone being a victim. Now, of course, that would include the child's family or the unit that they refer to as their family, and education providers and other, of course, professionals from mental health communities and others who can give direction on how we can work together from each population of people, or I said each circle of people, to work towards that public safety goal in the middle. I also believe that we must continue to build on that foundation that Judge Hunter started. We must continue to not shackle our children. You'd be surprised maybe to hear that there are times that the court still wants to shackle children. We must not shackle children.
Back in 2010, I was incarcerated for 2 felonies for the same act, facing 8.5 years in prison. I was held on a $200,000 bond with no 10%. Not having enough money to bond out, I was forced to remain in the county jail, charged with crimes for the same act. 8 months later, I was presented a deal from the prosecutor. They would drop one charge if I pled guilty to another one and take a year in the penal system as well. I refused. I knew this was a bullying tactic, but I had to stand up for what I thought was right, even without a paid attorney. I went to trial and lost. Because this was my first time in a prison system, they couldn't give me the maximum sentence. The judge sentenced me to 3 years. 18 months later, I won an appeal on the issue, which in turn led to resentencing for the same amount of time, just for one charge instead of both. So Prosecutor Rucker, what is your plan to stop double charging the citizens of Hamilton County?
It is not just for the police to bring 10 charges, only 3 of which are highly provable by the prosecutors, and the plea offers be based on the 10 instead of the 3. My prosecutors will be required by policy to make a reasonable and fair assessment of their ability to prove all of the charges, and which ones they can. That's what a plea bargain will be based on. The United States Supreme Court says that pretrial detention is the rare exception and should not be the rule. Yet we know that 70% of the people who are sitting in our jails are there because they cannot afford the bond. And a great number of them are there on offenses where they do not pose a significant risk of harm or danger to the community.
And those are great questions. First of all, I do not believe we need a new jail. I think we can work within the jail that we have to improve our systems, to improve the outcomes of those prisoners. I think we can work on overcrowding by working with the rest of the criminal justice system to address that. When I become sheriff of Hamilton County, one of the very first top priorities I have is to address the conditions of our jail for those people that are incarcerated. I know they need additional medical assistance. I know we need better mental health connections. I know that we need, in fact, food. We need to improve the nutrition that we're putting out as meals for our prisoners, and in particular, the way that our prisoners are interacted with the staff and the social services that we provide them. We need to work with the community as law enforcement, and I think that, you know, when law enforcement officers, when the sheriff's office is ready to embrace the fact and understand that there is systemic racism, that's when we begin to create solutions for it.
We thank each of you for your presence and attendance here. We want to say, somebody asked, were there other candidates who are running against these individuals? Were they invited? And the answer is yes. Each and every one of them were invited. One of them declined, everybody else ignored, and we had one maybe. Again, thank you so much for your time and your participation. We hope that you have heard the call to action and that you will respond. For your energy, the energy that you put into this election will either help move us closer to the beloved community, to the safe communities that we are all hoping for, or your lack of action will help us move further away. So we hope that you will respond to the call to action.